from the Catholic Underground.
Okay, everybody, today on the show, virtual reality, Planned Parenthood, but not what you think, tips for evangelization, outrage addiction, Kathleen's all over that, our picks of the week, and so much more. The Catholic Underground starts right now. Alrighty, place your hand upon your laptop. It is time for the Catholic Underground, your weekly Catholic guide to the digital continent. It's episode number 269. I am Father Chris Decker, a priest of the Diocese of Baton Rouge. If you're listening live, you can join us at CatholicUnderground.tv and get your chat on with us. Joining me this week, we've got Father Ryan Humphreys. He's the rector of the Minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in historic Natchitoches, Louisiana. Hello, Father.
Hello, world.
Also, we got Kathleen Lee, the campus minister at St. Michael the Archangel High School in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She is our fully licensed faith ninja. Hello, Kathleen.
Well, hi.
Also, Jeff Blackwell. He is the technical director of the CU. He's the commandant of the Jeff Star 1 near-Earth orbit satellite. Hello, Jeff.
Where we got a new coffee maker this week?
Oh, that's right. It's one of those industrial Keurigs, isn't it? Ka-chunk. And then, of course, you can't see him, but you can see his handiwork. Tim the Seminary and intern, our disembodied video director for the live stream, is also here. Oh my, this is a full house. It's very good to be with you all, and we are going to go right into virtual reality. I would love to be able to take you on a virtual reality tour of this radio station, but the technology is just not right here physically. But there is new software that hopes to make the creation of lifelike virtual reality as easy, if you can imagine, and probably as dangerous as desktop publishing. Father Ryan, is this Print Shop Pro for 3D?
Yeah, it is.
Jeff, do you remember Print Shop Pro?
I do, yeah.
Print Shop Pro, of course, was like the thing that made everybody a publisher all of a sudden.
Yeah.
If you could make really bad graphics, well then you could put it on paper and put it on a wall somewhere. Is that what this is, Father?
Yeah, basically what Print Shop Pro did was give people the tools and give people the ability to understand words that, you and I know fairly well, things like font and kerning and ligatures and things like that. Yeah. And it gave people the ability to wash that away and just do what they needed to do. And there's a couple of new technologies out there. We've talked about Oculus Rift before. And what they're doing is, or rather a lot of people now are saying, well, I want to write to the Oculus Rift. I want to program. But it's right now extremely complicated. You have to know tons about 3D modeling. And so what a company called 6 Sense is doing is they've created an SDK, a software development package that is going to integrate into what we call the Unity engine or the Unreal engine. These are the things that make your big first-person shooter games work. And so now with a little bit of study, a little bit of learning, you can start just by using a few codes and a few graphics. You can actually build the radio station in VR, and then someone who has the Oculus Rift can put it on and run it and walk around the radio station, and touch things and stuff like that.
That is kind of neat. I mean, I could see that there are some applications for this. The video that the 6 Sense people show are at like a firing range, and you have this object that looks like a gun whenever you're looking at it through your goggles, but it's actually just kind of a little like a laser pistol thing,
Oh, okay.
And so they were showing the guy doing target practice. But I could see, like, if let's say you were about ready to build a new radio station, and you wanted to give somebody the experience of what this new radio station was going to be, and you wanted them to be able to pick up things. Well, you could give them these goggles and have the 3D model already built, and they could actually kind of walk through it. And pick up things that then maybe they could donate to and that sort of thing. I
like that.
This idea,
hint, nudge, nudge,
yeah, wink, wink. Know what I mean? But also, Father, we were thinking about how cool it would be for something like seminaries.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about this because I know that the reality of transitioning from study into real world is incredibly difficult. And anyone who's been to med school, knows how radically different it is to kind of go through a procedure in your head and then to actually perform it. Well, with priests, it's the same way. You go through in your head what it's going to be like to say Mass. Yeah. But it's not really conducive by yourself with a kitchen table to really go through the entire Mass, certainly not the traditional Latin Mass. And I was thinking in particular about baptism. Yeah. Because baptism is the hardest thing to practice.
It's true.
And it comes in all these different flavors. Sometimes it's a little baptism after Mass.
Yeah.
No big deal, 20 minutes. Sometimes it's like 3 kids during Mass, which
Yeah.
is a whole different animal.
Yes.
And then sometimes you're receiving an adult into the church, after on a Saturday morning. And I mean, in the extraordinary form and blah, blah, blah. And that's a 45-minute thing. And walking yourself through that,
Yeah.
it's difficult if you're just kind of saying, okay, that guy's going to be there and this one's going to be here. But assuming this SDK, is as advertised, and you decide you want to be a little sassy and learn it, you could produce an incredibly valuable series of tools for lots of different markets. I mean, but priests are no different. It could be incredibly useful.
That's true. Kathleen, would you have any use for a 3D world that you could build? What would you do?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure I would find something if I could. Look, I cut the grass today, and it took me 20 minutes to turn the lawnmower on. So I'm pretty sure it would take me a while to figure it out, but I don't know.
What would be really cool, too, is if you think about it from the evangelization standpoint, to be able to take somebody on a trip through the Holy Land.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And maybe be able to pick up some artifacts, and it could be a real interactive kind of thing. Or even something like St. Peter's Basilica, places that many people never get a chance to go in their life. And then to be able to maybe take them into the sacristy and learn about how these things work and see that sort of thing. Jeff?
Well, if you did something like where you had a church with lots of items laying around, and then you had a baptismal font off to the side and a baptistry, and with all the things that were going to be used for baptism, and then you had another place where there was going to be a place where the sick were going to come, and you had all the sacraments kind of arranged, and all the various kind of things of the church, from berettas to sprinklers to everything. And then the person could just wander around for hours looking at these different things, going in the sacristy, saying, what is the alb? What is this? And, and even if you had a little somebody walking with them who could say, now, this is what this is, and explain it if they asked a question. That'd be an incredible tool.
Your Emmaus guide.
Yes. Your Emmaus angel.
So, Jeff, virtual reality, you in, you out?
I've been trying to think of how it would help somebody like me do something, but I'd love to be the recipient of some of the programs like you talked about, the Holy Land, touring the Vatican, stuff like that. Things.
But actually building it.
Oh no, not from a standpoint of building it. I don't know. Just does it have Comic Sans? That's all I want to know.
Well, if it's worth its salt, no.
No,
probably papyrus. Gosh, especially if it's a Holy Land tour,
Yeah, it would be mountains of papyrus.
3D papyrus text somewhere. Yeah, I like this idea though. It'd be interesting to see. This is one of those things that if you could get it into the hands of a Catholic who has the ability to really kind of dream big, and then has some of that ability to build, I would love to see how it would work out. Because this is one of those things where if somebody really is on their game, as I would say that some of these schools that are starting to add a few more evangelization type things to their curriculum, somebody who's really on their game, this really could be a neat thing. And I know, Father, sometimes whenever there is a, quote, religious, unquote, application that's used, it always gets shoved to the back of the shelf at a big box store or something. But how neat it would be to be able to offer something like a tour of the Holy Land, and that it would show, because it would be so good that it would show up and it would be on the front shelf of everything,
Mm-hmm.
Well, it really would. I mean, because this travel was a fairly logical extension of this, especially for places that people are not supposed to go,
right?
Like the Tower of London, or the catacombs, things that are restricted access. This is a great way for people who cannot go to those places to use it. And of course, those destinations are not going to want to allow it, because that's losing money for them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a logical extension. And I mean, this right now is just the first real foray into making it easy. When iPhone apps first came out, it was an act of God to make one, and now it's remarkably simple.
Right.
And so I would expect in 3 to 4 to 5 years that this gets simpler and simpler and simpler. Until it's basically something that anybody could really pick up and work with. It's a great thing.
I like the sound of it. It'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Is there a price tag at this point?
Or is it still all development?
Yeah, it's all development.
Okay.
I mean, it seems like that they're going to be working with it, but SDKs generally, they don't charge big for them, because they're hoping that they're going to be able to sell you all kinds of other stuff that goes with it. So
gotcha.
I don't see any kind of price point at all indicated on the website or anywhere else.
Okay.
But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's very true. You are listening to the Catholic Underground. We are online at catholicunderground.tv. I am Father Chris Decker, your humble host. We've got Father Ryan Humphreys on Skype. Got Jeff Blackwell in the audio cave. Kathleen Lee sits to my left, your right. And, of course, we've got Tim the Seminary and intern switching video for us on the video feed. Our picks of the week are coming up a little bit later, but first, Kathy Ireland and Planned Parenthood. Yeah.
Well, in the 90s, for those of us who were around.
I was around.
I was a little baby.
You were a tyke.
Yeah, I was. But in the 90s, Kathy Ireland was one of the world's top supermodels.
I remember that growing up, actually.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
She is.
She's aged remarkably well. But she, after getting out of the modeling business in the past decade or so, she's been a mom, an author, a speaker, and just recently a pro-life advocate.
That's not something that you see all the time with a model who actually, first of all, breaks out of the biz.
Right.
And isn't just doing Estee Lauder commercials, but a pro-life.
Mm-hmm. Well, she talks about in a recent TV interview about how she was pro-choice for a very long time. And when she started looking at the science and the philosophy of what abortion, what life was, what abortion meant, she really had this conversion.
Wow.
And so she talks about in this interview, about just her curiosity of what was going on. So she called Planned Parenthood, and they said, "Oh, it's just a clump of cells. If you get it early enough, which I don't know, like
that
seems
seems
like
to be like a new. That's like a new phrase. Clump of cells.
Yeah. Well, she had this beautiful like explanation about it, which made sense to me. They said if you get it early enough, it doesn't even look like a baby. She pointed out that we as adults are clumps of cells.
Yeah.
And that this unborn clump of cells doesn't look like a baby the way a baby doesn't look like a teenager, the way a teenager doesn't look like an elderly person. But that this unborn baby looks exactly the way it's supposed to look at its point in development.
That's good philosophy.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And she goes on to quote the law of biogenesis, which I didn't know there was such thing, but it's fascinating. She says all life comes from pre-existing life, and each species reproduces its own kind.
Yep.
So this clump of cells didn't start as something else, and then at some point change its species.
That's right. It's what we would call, Father Ryan, I remember from philosophy, the principle of contingent being.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
Yeah, and so she talks just really about the science and the philosophy of it, and she continues to point out that there are two victims of abortion, as we know there is the child and the mother, and that we as Christians, we can't, condemn these mothers. We have to be compassionate.
Right, because really society's not on their side.
Right.
If you hear, again, in society, clump of cells, clump of cells, clump of cells, if you catch this early enough, it doesn't look like a baby.
Right.
This is kind of, it's kind of like the Batman movie where they want to flood all of this toxin into the water supply of the city.
Yeah.
That's what's happening in society. We're flooding into kind of the water pipes of our own lived philosophy. We're flooding this poison in.
Yeah.
And so, I would agree that we can't condemn the mothers because 9 times out of 10, if I can use that cliche, I bet they don't really know because they're just going with what society is saying.
Yeah. They just need somebody, and that's been, my experience working with the pro-life movement.
Yeah.
Is they just need somebody to listen to them.
Yeah.
And to give them another option because, most of the time, women who are presented with these facts, right?
Yeah.
The real facts of science, you take faith and morals out of it.
Yeah.
Just the science alone, is incredible.
And it's convincing because it's true and it resonates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she goes on to say something very interesting when she says that we need to get politics out of it and put it in the hands of scientists.
Yeah.
She says that even if we don't have the same faith or beliefs, you can't argue with the science of something, which I think is ingenious. Like, we can talk about the morals and the faith aspect of it, but when it comes down to it, you can't argue with the science.
And again, that's good philosophy. That that it is able to kind of hand off to, well, let's look at it from a biological standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, and use the life sciences and even the health sciences and the human sciences to look at how this works. Because oftentimes we don't think of the mother as being a victim.
Right.
You
right,
know?
and she definitely is. Because you think about what happens after an abortion. There is no, they don't provide any, counseling or pretty much they usher you out the door and you're on your own. And then these women are left with guilt and and
all these things to sort through, and there's
nothing there.
And that's oftentimes when they come to the church,
right?
And let me say, we are happy to receive you. There are so many women I know that have had abortions, and they don't think they can go to the church because they think that the church will spurn them and turn them away. No, as Mother Teresa, I'm sure, would have said, come to me, come to the church, come home, and there is nothing that could have happened that has been so bad.
Yeah.
Even the death of your own child, that the church cannot in some way heal, that God can't heal and welcome you back. And so how awesome it is to have somebody who's been in the business, in the business of modeling, of kind of, for want of a better term, kind of being professionally an objectified image that has had this just tremendous conversion experience to realizing I am a subject of God. Mm-hmm. An unborn child is a subject of God, and the clump of cells that I can't make out that looks like a baby, that is a subject of God as well.
Yeah. Well, what's so interesting about it is she talks about, how her mother wasn't Christian. She didn't grow up in a Christian household, and it wasn't until she had moved away that her mom had put a Bible in her luggage. Oh. And she was off modeling somewhere, and she said she was bored, and so she picked it up. And she talked very briefly about her conversion to Christianity, but that wasn't the basis of her viewpoint on being pro-life.
Yeah.
She said, let's look at the facts, and then we can talk about we talk about the other stuff, but let's look at the facts first. And it is a beautiful interview.
Now, I haven't seen the interview yet, but from what Father Ryan says in our show notes is that there's a real sense of humility, and it's not like she's trying to push a book or an agenda.
Yeah.
But that this is really indicative of what has gone on in her heart. Father, did you get a chance to watch the whole interview?
I did, and it's exactly that way. I mean, because this is a woman with great respect who doesn't seem highly educated. She doesn't have double doctorates from Yale or whatever. Yeah. She's been a model since she was a young woman. She was very, very successful. She was lucky enough to get out at the right time before it ruined her with drug abuse or things like that. And she spent the last years really living the American dream, having enough money to be happy, but not chasing, Yeah. And her faith seems based on a very sincere and very open sense of, if this is what God wants, then that's what I want. And she seemed open to God directing her. And she mentioned a couple of kind of Protestant groups that she got connected with over the course of years. And, it's a kind of a sense of, I'd love her to be Catholic, but it's a success story in the sense that, the Lord has protected her and kept her from things that other people in her industry, have not been protected from. And so it's a beautiful story in that sense too.
That's right. And of course, as Catholics, we know that the real nemesis of abortion and of places like Planned Parenthood is the Blessed Virgin Mary. They tend to hate her. We can't sugarcoat that any sort of way. And so Catholic Lane, one of our content partners, has some really good articles on pro-life Marian devotion, and so we'll put that in the show notes for you, because really the pro-life movement, if you will, didn't just begin with God, but in a real mystical and beautiful way, it began with his mother. Yeah. And so Mary is an important part of praying for more conversions like people at Catholic Ireland. I think that's a really beautiful thing. So also from the Victims of the Sexual Revolution desk, LifeSite News has, Father Ryan, Mindy's story as well.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that I came across randomly on Facebook this week, and it was incredibly heartbreaking, and at the same time, it had a certain sense of beauty with it. There's a guy named Donnie Pauling Jr. He's a former producer of pornography, and he obviously has spent years doing this and ruining people's lives, and in a conscious way doing that. Yeah. And has had a conversion, and now is devoted his life to helping people in the pornography industry. And he tells the story of this vivacious young woman named Mindy, who he ran into her, came to her, and he basically got her into the business. And at the beginning of the story, he writes, quote, "She had a natural charisma, a beautiful smile, a melodic laugh. She loved life, and she enlivened any room into which she walked. And at the beginning of her career, she could have been the poster child for a bubbly personality. But then he says, the lifestyle I had saddled her with drained all the light and sparkle from her eyes. And where once a girl existed who would light up the room just by being herself, now there was a girl, and this is poignant, who would often literally begin a sentence laughing and end the same sentence in tears."
Wow.
Which is just horrific. And at one point, this young woman does find the Lord in kind of this kind of neat moment. But this guy, Donnie Pauling Jr., says he saw the seed of faith. She tried to witness that as she was trying to get out of the business.
Yeah.
He consciously subverts that and drags her back in.
My goodness.
And it's horrific. And the story, of course, ends with exactly what you'd expect. Drug abuse. She has 2 kids by people she doesn't know. The child services take the children away. And by California law, she can never have them back. And the woman's barely 30, 35 years old now, and her life is just in every way tragic. And it's tragic, and yet it's poignant because you have this deep sense of this is what happens, not just to people who have been tossed into the world by circumstances. Because this young woman, when she first started in this industry, was making $10,000 a month acting. This is the fruit of what perversion does. And it's a tragic story, but a story hopefully that we can learn from. And of course, that's what Pauling is trying to do by doing all this work, is trying to make up for and bring return to the Lord for the lives that he completely ruined, the ones of the actors as well, and then also the lives of the people who have become addicted to pornography around the world.
It reminds me of Matthew chapter 18, the words of Jesus. "Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of the things that cause sin. Such things must come, but woe to the one through whom they come." And it sounds to me like this guy who was the professional pornographer has recognized the weight of that millstone, but then to have to kind of stare back into your past and the ones you've led astray, that's got to be excruciating.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are times in my life when I was trying to teach CCD, and I remember effectively cussing a young man out who had pushed me past the point of no return.
Right.
And when I think about that story, I mean, my heart breaks to pieces.
Yeah.
And I have maybe 4 or 5 of those in my 20 years of being a professional Catholic.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine what the heart would go through when you look up and you realize this is what I've been doing, ruining lives professionally for decades.
Exactly.
That just beyond imagination.
And again, we mentioned that. I think we probably mentioned this book at least once or twice every other show. But Father Elijah by Michael D. O'Brien has that great exorcism scene. And then Sophia House, the book that's kind of the prequel to it, kind of goes a little bit deeper into one of the characters who has just become so riddled with kind of leading people astray and using them as objects. And you just see what was probably a vibrant young man, in this case, who has just become so riddled and addled with the effects of sin. And how important that the only one who can intervene is God at that point, and in many cases, at the hand of a priest, and so
in a lot less deep and profound way.
Yeah.
When I was reading this story, incidentally, I came across a number of kind of neat websites as I was connecting with this with other people who've had similar experiences.
Yeah.
But the thing that came to my mind actually is Voldemort.
Oh, yes.
Well, at the end, where at the very end of the 7th book, where they're fighting back and forth, and Harry says, "Try for some what does he say? Contrition, not contrition. What's the secular word for contrition? Remorse. He says, "Try for some remorse." And there's that idea where Voldemort in the book just looks at him with a scorn, and he literally has no way to comprehend
what remorse is.
Yeah, I mean, the way Rowling describes it in the book is that he's dumbfounded. He's saying, of all the things you could have done in the world, this one never entered my mind. The same way the spell, whatever it is, the cast the wand away spell, that never entered the mind of the bad guy. And so remorse never entered the mind of the bad guy. And it just kind of was like, this is something that in the world, most people will say, okay, I'm willing to expect any number of things, but you want me to honestly feel sorry?
Yeah.
I don't even know how to begin to explain that. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, and the soul can actually become so distorted and disfigured that is when Satan is winning, is whenever we don't know what remorse is, because we have never experienced contrition, and because we've never experienced reconciliation. That's the one thing I think that is so beautiful about how Jesus has engineered the church that he founded, is that he knew that we would have to keep contrition in front of us. He knew we would have to keep something bigger than our sin in front of us, and that bigger thing, of course, is God, who is ready to welcome us back. And I can't tell you how many times I myself have been to the sacrament of reconciliation, where I'm like, oh, thank the Lord, thank you, Lord, for being here in this moment, and for not giving my soul a chance to be snatched away, because it does happen. Sometimes it happens quickly, but oftentimes, more often than not, a soul is slowly perverted and turned. And so this is, as you say, it's tragic to hear Mindy's story, but also it's a reminder to us of how we always must be on our guard, because as we know, Father, those who pray night prayer know it too. The devil is prowling like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour, and oftentimes he will use people like this guy who was like Pauling, Thanks be to God that he's turned his life around. Well, that's our urgent message for you today. So let's do this. You are in fact listening to The Catholic Underground. It is your weekly Catholic guide to the digital continent. We are online at CatholicUnderground.tv and Facebook.com/Catholic Underground. I'm Father Chris Decker. We've got Father Ryan Humphreys, Kathleen Lee, Jeff Blackwell, and of course, Tim the Sim, seminary and intern, is switching the video. You can't see him, but he's there. Our Pigs of the Week are coming up, but first, if you were in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, there were a couple of things happening at the same time, and it is delightfully ironic. There was, of course, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. I think they call it the summer meeting, but maybe they call it the spring meeting, but it's in the summer. I don't know. Anyway, it was in New Orleans, and then in the very same city was the Jehovah's Witnesses convention. Yeah, and in fact, it was almost in the same hotel. A lot of the bloggers that were at the USCCB meeting were saying, "Hey, it's interesting that the Jehovah's Witnesses convention is taking place in the same lobby, practically." I think they were in different places, but the actual conventions were, but they were all staying at the same hotels. So a reporter from Vice magazine, Michael Winters, went to the Jehovah's Witnesses convention in New Orleans. And he was kind of keeping an open mind, but he remarked about some of the things that he experienced. He says as soon as he got there, a secret service followed him around. And it was these guys that had the whole 9 yards, right? They had the earpiece, kind of like I do. I've got an earpiece today. Have an earpiece, and then they had the little microphone in their cuff. Yeah. And they were saying, we've got a journalist on level H. And he said they followed me around, and eventually they kind of encountered him and said, a press person is on their way down for you, sir, because they realized that he was a journalist. He had a press pass. Everyone at the Jehovah's Witnesses convention was a volunteer. So there were no paid folks. They were the security force, if you will, the media relations people, the environment committee, even down to a cache of janitors. They didn't use any of the Superdome, or rather, it was the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Yeah, they didn't use any of the Superdome's folks. They provided everything. In fact, they didn't have the concessions open. Normally, at one of these things, the concessions would be open so that the Superdome could make back some of its money, I guess. Yeah. All that was closed as well. And see,
I figured the union would have something to say about that.
I guess. I don't know.
Maybe they worked that out.
Maybe they worked that out some sort of way. Maybe they found the price. I don't know. But he said that was the thing about it, is everybody was a volunteer. And the volunteers were organized out of the individual Kingdom Hall Jehovah's Witnesses congregations. So this congregation was in charge of security. This congregation was in charge of janitorial services, and he was really interested by all that. He also said that the whole time he was there was eerie music, kind of akin to a David Lynch film. It was this kind of weird, ethereal music. He says it was obvious that every moment was thought out, right down to the quiet please cards that some of the volunteers were holding up during a particularly cheesy pièce de résistance closing film. He said it was delivered deadpan, and I'm just trying to imagine this in my head, you know.
Gosh.
And he said even some of the Jehovah's Witnesses who were attending the conference were kind of snickering at this film. He said, they know how to organize a conference. They also know how to laugh, you know. He says, and they enjoy eating together and fellowship. And so my question would be, can we learn anything from the Jehovah's Witnesses on evangelization here? I would say it really takes planning to deliver a good event, right down to the very minute thing that you didn't even think you'd have to think about. And Father, we've had experience with that. You with the Steubenville conferences and logistics, but also with Catholicon.
Probably for almost the last 15 years or so, I've been involved in various ways with the Veritas retreats, a smaller scale, Steubenville retreats, of course, the Abbey Youth Festival, Catholicon, and all of those events, of course, in very different ways, do require somebody, in fact, several somebodies, to think their way through, like we talked about the virtual reality, through every detail of the thing, you know, and there were so many things at Catholicon that we ran into. Some of them we had thought out, and we weren't able to accomplish because I got food poisoning on lox and bagels.
He did.
But some of them were things we just never even considered that people would wonder or concern about. We never thought about this, that, or the other. But I think, like you said, Father, it does take planning, and the new evangelization is going to take some real pre-planning. It can't just be something we just kind of come up with and go, let's just fire at it. Of course,
let's
there is
do evangelization right now.
Well, there is that scripture about the Holy Spirit will give you the words to say, and He will. But establishing the environment within which the Holy Spirit can move is what we do. That's why we have church architecture. That's why we have so many aspects of the modern day pastoral ministry. And I think that work of establishing the environment, that's what gives you and me and other people a chance to say, what makes people feel comfortable? What makes people feel uncomfortable? Should we have social media integration? How much? Should there be big screens? Should we use tech? Should we not? Should there be a food bar or just a coffee bar or an espresso machine? You know, all these kinds of things that are not directly related to the gospel of Jesus Christ, but which are going to have an effect upon the soil within which the seed is going to be sown.
There it is. That's exactly it. And one of the things that I would say is that even non-Catholics have a default to cheese principle that has to be closely guarded, you know? And it's always there. It's always looming to do something with excellence, you know? And I know, Kathleen, you'll probably encounter the necessity of excellence whenever you get into your full-time, full-on campus ministry work at the high school.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I bet so. What makes the Jehovah's Witnesses worth watching is their ability to cold pitch people, to walk right up to them, to knock on every door with a plan, a message, and a whole menu of possible responses. It's kind of like calling or being called by a telemarketer, I guess. And so Lifehacker advises would-be salesmen to craft a problem statement for successful cold calls. Father, have you ever had to cold call somebody before?
Yeah, sadly. I mean, when you're trying to convince someone of something, I've done some cold calls. More often, though, when I was at LSU, you know, I would just kind of wander up to somebody and say, you know, like, hello, have you thought about, you know, becoming pro-life? Or have you thought about coming to the campus ministry? Have you thought about coming to Mass? And that approach is difficult because if you just come up and go, hi there, you ever been to Mass? There's, you know, you're not really accomplishing a whole lot. In fact, I was the brutal victim of idiots walking up and go, have you accepted Jesus? You know, and I look at them and go, yes, I have. One of my favorite memories at LSU, I was walking to class. It was like 10:15 at night. And this guy comes up, have you accepted Jesus? And I went, yeah. And he goes, oh, have you ever, you been baptized? I said, yeah.
Yep, I'm good.
He goes, pray in tongues and be fussed. Well, I can pray in tongues all you'd like. You know, this guy was like completely thrown off, and he goes, what are you? I said, I'm a Catholic. Get out of my face. And we walked away.
I'm a Catholic. Get out of my face. There's a T-shirt for Father Ryan.
Well, I mean, I'm standing in front of Canes, which is not the best neighborhood in the world, right outside of LSU's campus, and this guy is effectively just, harassing me at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, dude,
I just want
let's
my
talk
chicken.
about this in Free Speech Alley tomorrow when it's light outside and there are people around. This is creepy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyway, but no, cold calls are tough. So, like, and even though Christianity is not sales, there's a lot of the same skills in evangelization. And a cold pitch is when you approach someone and you're not invited by them and you try to convince them of something. And so, for example, let's say I want to get a job from some company. I would call and I'd say, hi, I'm looking for a job. I'd like to speak to someone at Larry's Lumber to see whether my experience as a business development manager that specializes in closing sales is going to be a good fit for your company or not. The idea is that I'm telling them that there is a need for me. I'm giving them, without kind of slapping them in the face with it, I'm saying, I've got something that you really need. In evangelization, I might meet someone and I might, read this person as being someone who's kind of doesn't know what their purpose in life is, or feels like they're just kind of wandering through life. And I might hit them with something like, have you thought about coming to like a no commitment hour of prayer that would provide some real direction and a rational purpose for your life? If I was going to invite them to mass or to adoration. Or I might have a different cold pitch for somebody who is a seriously committed Protestant or a seriously committed Muslim. But the purpose is that I should come to that person knowing that there's a hole in their life, because there always is, and that Christ can fill it. And if I believe that, then that gives me some way in without going, have you accepted Jesus into your life, you big old heathen?
Right.
That never works.
And I find that interesting, because this has been developed certainly by Jehovah's Witnesses and others. In fact, I was beset by a guy the other day who wanted to have a, quote, theological discussion, unquote, but really didn't. He just had a whole bunch of little circular loops that he wanted to lead me in, because his particular church had taught him this is how you get a Catholic saved. And so even they have the ability to kind of craft this problem statement, this kind of flow chart in the head. And I wonder why we haven't. I guess it's maybe because our experience of Catholicism is a little more, I don't know. I don't even know how to say that. I mean, from my experience of the church as a place that I encountered the liturgy and the Eucharist, and also because I don't have a methodical brain, it doesn't even occur to me to have some ready, set, go things to say.
Yeah, me either.
I don't know. Kathleen, have you ever thought about it at all, or you just shoot from the hip?
I am horrible at
apologetics.
And now that I live at home with my parents, they have a house phone.
Oh.
So they get calls all the time. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I just wanted to be like, you know what? God bless you and your
tenacity.
Yeah, because I have no skills for that. None. Yeah. You answer a question of mine and I'd be like, okay, bye. Have a good day. Sorry to bother you.
And there you go.
Yep.
In fact, I think that for me, sometimes when I do manage to have a telemarketer get through the web, and into my phone, I tend to get outraged. And as it turns out, Jeff Blackwell, there are some that are addicted to outrage.
Are you addicted to outrage?
I might be. I don't know.
No. And it's something worth asking yourself, but this is a cool article, and it's in our show notes at catholicunderground.tv.
Word.
And it's really, when I started reading this article, I had this flashback to, this is back in the 1900s. I know you're just a mere itty bitty baby over there, Kathleen. But I was living in Pensacola. My wife and I were fairly newlyweds, and I was involved with a Christian radio station at that time. But the pastor of our church, he and I were going to lunch, and I may have told this story one time. It's been over a year ago, but we pull up to a traffic light, and there's this guy on the corner screaming at us, "You're going to hell! You're going to hell!" And we look at each other like, how does he know? But,
Uh-oh.
No. But this guy was absolutely he was infuriated about something. There's what they call a street preachers group there.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a Bible college, quote unquote, in Pensacola. But I have seen Catholics get fired up about their pro-life beliefs.
Yeah.
And start spewing. I'm like, wait a minute, this is this isn't not very Christ-like, first of all, but it's not part of what I think Catholics should.
We lead with peace and not the sword.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah. So part of that, like Father Ryan was talking about, was being kind of being prepared. If you're going to be on the battlefront, if you will, standing outside an abortion or across the street from an abortion clinic. Yeah. There's a proper way to do things, but this and I misplaced my glasses here, but this outrage addiction can really take people who have been lukewarm in their faith, and then when they start getting fired up about it, I mean, it's just like, get out of the way. They don't know how to throttle it, if they will.
Yeah, and I think that's the real danger, right? That's what becomes an addiction, right, Father? We have those who are always looking for the thing to kind of fill the hole, and for some, it's just getting mad about this, that, and the other.
Well, yeah, and the internet makes it very easy to do that. You go out there and you post something that is very consciously controversial. It's going to make somebody unhappy, and then they get unhappy about it, and then you just fire back, and there's this vicious back and forth. There's a guy who is always posting on Father Z's post to Facebook, and Father Z likes to do things that are a little taunting and a little more likely to make people angry. But there's this one guy, he's from California, and he always is a troll. He's just a troll of the worst order, and he posts these obnoxious replies, and you see people who are trying very hard to be kind and gentle, and he just keeps firing back these obnoxious things. And the only thing you can think about that is that this is a guy who likes either infuriating people or who likes being infuriated, because he stands completely opposite to everything Father Z does. So why do you follow him?
Right.
I don't go to the National Catholic Reporter website. I don't want to know. I'm going to be infuriated, so I don't go there ever. And it's just kind of this notion of there's a sense of, why would you want to infuriate yourself? Yeah. It's not as if, Father, you and I are pastors, so we may have a parishioner who drives us nuts. That's a different thing. But when people are consciously saying, I want to go somewhere that's going to enrage me, I'm not going to be able to fix it or change anything, I just want to get angry and I want to pick a fight. That's what we're talking about here. And that hits on certain things within us, within the mind, that actually do cause full-on addiction, because it establishes that fight or flight thing, and it connects with the serotonin and the adrenaline and all the kinds of things that make addiction.
Most things you see on 24-hour news channels, I think, nowadays.
All from the devil.
Yeah, there you go.
Like foosball.
I don't know. A foosball addiction can happen at any time, any day, any night, especially after a football game, from what I'm told. European football, Kathleen.
Football.
That's right. Football.
Australian rules.
Footy, as it were. There's a website that I don't know how we missed in the grand scheme of our surfings, because Father Ryan and I are like those two guys on the Endless Summer, but not with actual surfboards, with surfing the web, Also, I don't own a wetsuit, but chastity.com. Why haven't we seen this before? The folks at Catholic Answers have an entire site devoted to what they're calling chastity outreach, and it contains an updated series of articles and tracts on dealing with a lot of different issues regarding living a chaste life. And, when we're talking about things like we were just speaking of, apologetics, of how do I begin to talk to my teenager about dating and about relationships, what is chastity, that Catholic Christian notion of being chaste? Is it always celibacy? What is that? What do I do whenever I'm confronted with contraception or the so many reproductive technologies that are coming out now and that are becoming more and more kind of across the board accepted in society? What is this natural family planning thing? What do I do whenever my teenager, quote unquote, comes out of the closet? How do I deal with same-sex attraction? Chastity.com is a resource that has all of that there. They have a lot of articles that are written by many people who are kind of in the know, who are in the place where they're dealing with this on a regular basis. Matt Fradd is one who is very well known who does this. And so chastity.com is a really good site. Father, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it yet.
Yeah, I've looked at the general layout of the site. The videos was what I was really excited about. And unfortunately, most of the videos are just like what we're doing here, where there's somebody sitting behind a microphone talking.
Yeah.
And I was really hopeful they would have all these kind of cool videos that are coming out around the web.
Yeah.
But the site itself is incredibly useful just as somewhere to say, you know, if you have a young man or a young woman who is interested or is struggling with this, just posting an ad for this, like on a flyer or something, can go a long way. Because I found a lot of teenagers really are hungry and desirous to know the truth, but nowadays it's so uncool and unpopular. Having something easy like go to chastity.com is unbelievably valuable, because if I've got to say go to minorBasilica.org/issues/web/blog/this 1268 capital G.htm,
That's right.
you know, you're never going to get there. But if I could just say, look, go to chastity.com, you don't have to be embarrassed when you're by yourself. No one's going to know you did it. You know, you can put your skanky shorts on while you go if it makes you feel better.
No, don't do that.
But, well, as long as you're alone. But, you know, go to the site, look at it. That's such a valuable thing. And just having that top-level domain there, that's good. It's really good.
Yep, it's a good resource for sure.
You also have a Pinterest thing, which makes me want to vomit a bit, but I'm glad it's there.
It's okay, Father. You can vomit. In fact, pin it if you do.
Yeah.
I don't have a Pinterest account, and I refuse to get one. It's like Plurk. I'm just going to wait it out.
Just gonna. I don't know. Pinterest seems to be sticking around.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm waiting it out.
Oh yeah. No, it's here.
Father, do we have the time to talk about funerals?
No, we
just
don't.
Gonna, you know,
but the dead people do. Whoa! Okay, we'll do it next time.
I'm not really sure how we do what we do from week to week. Actually, we teased the funeral thing last episode. We mentioned it briefly this, and so maybe by the next episode.
We're going to lead with it next time.
Yeah, 270, we're going to start talking about funerals.
Depressing beyond imagination.
Catholic Underground, depressing beyond imagination. Well, you know, one of the things on our show that we don't think is really depressing.
The CU Pick of the Week.
Is my quick thumbed CU Pick of the Week. All righty. I don't know. I feel like starting with Jeff today, like just changing it up, being crazy.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Let's do this thing.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah, buckle up. Because I've got, this is an app I downloaded, probably 6-8 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I've been having some fun with this on an like a smartphone to play, and it's F-18 carrier. I think is the way you
had the
search
forklift thing a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, you know.
And now you've got the F-18 air fighter.
And I'm not much of I don't play games a lot, but this one, because I love aviation, first of all. And this is real basic. I mean, you got flaps, you've got, your throttle and your landing gear. You know, it's so it's pretty basic. But on an iPhone, to be able to see the aircraft carriers are coming in at like a couple of hundred knots.
Oh my!
It happens pretty fast. So I had an iPad. Actually, my kids got together and gave me an iPad for my birthday this year. It was the big 6.0.
Oh really?
And so I said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and download it on there, and it's a lot of fun. The graphics are really good. It's got some real cheesy music, so I turned that off. But you got the sound effects, and of course they bill it as it's like. Really authentic, but no. but it's fun to play.
It's a game. It's actually
and, they got upgrades for like 99-cent upgrades.
Oh yeah, you can upgrade
like
the stuff in your plane and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the different models like they even have a Harrier if you're into that. They've got the prop type plane. I forget the make of it. I've never even heard of it. But anyway, it's developed by an Italian group.
Rortos,
and but they did a good job. These American-made planes, the A6, the old F4 Phantom. Yeah. I mean, it's just fun to play. It's when you have nothing better to do.
That's right. You had the iPad. You had to have the app. I understand how that works.
So, so check out the link in the show notes, and it'll tell you more about it. Or you can just type in F-18 carrier on your smart device in the App Store.
Oh, and that will do the trick.
Yeah,
it's right. Fun. Kathleen, you're on this health kick.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work out, but we'll see how. I did do Couch to 5K.
Yeah,
that was my app and then I almost died. So I took a little break, and I decided to find something else. But now I'm kind of looking at, I'm in a new place.
Yep.
A new little neighborhood. It's old to me, but it's new for now. And so I'm looking to get back into walk running.
Yeah.
And so I downloaded this map. I wanted to find out how long 3 miles was.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated with my car because it doesn't do like point how many every
right.
mile. So
It
I
just
wanted to
gives
see
you-
how far I could go and then turn back around and end my 5K.
Yeah.
And so I downloaded this app called Map My Run.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. It's free. And it may be old news to some of you who are using, running apps. But it uses a GPS to track you as you walk. It tells you where you ran on the map, how far you ran, what your pace was, and even how many calories you burned. Then you can either store it or you can put it on Facebook or anything like that. It's free, and there's actually one for Map My Walk as well if you're a walker. But it's cool. You can go on their websites and you can find routes. You can create routes. So like if you're trying to find, let's say at least a 3 mile route.
Oh,
in
it'll
your
route it
neighborhood.
for you?
Yeah, it'll maybe I'm not quite sure how these routes got there. Maybe other people have posted them. But it shows you, you can click on it and say, it'll show you this is a 3 mile
Oh, that's
route
kind of cool.
near you. Mm-hmm.
Well, and if I can, Kathleen, I know. Are you still a Fitbit user? Did you find your
I am.
Fitbit?
Haha, and
Oh,
I
you got
fixed it.
Oh, you fixed it.
Yeah, it
Wow.
wasn't syncing.
You
Yeah,
fixed
I did
it.
it myself with a little, what you call that, toggle?
Oh, the dongle.
The dongle.
whatever.
That's okay. You were close.
It was the Bluetooth, and I fixed it and found the reset button. It was
There
great.
you go. Well, the new Fitbit app on the iPhone
Huh?
has a map and an exercise function. So
Wow.
if Map My Run works for you, use
Yeah,
it.
but if you don't have a Fitbit,
right, but if
you can map your walk.
Yeah.
exactly, and it uses GPS.
But I'll have to
now.
check that out on
Like that.
Fitbit.
Yes, that
I
was a
love
surprise
me
that
some
I saw it
Fitbit.
too. Yeah. Father Ryan.
I am a user of Squarespace on several sites, and I've mentioned it before, but Squarespace has added a bunch of new, really nice blocks. Now, what Squarespace does is it gives you the way to design your page. It uses a bunch of blocks that you can drag in that do different things. So some of them might add a menu, a whole menu for a restaurant. Others might simply be a text block. Another one might be a quotation block. Another one is a spacer. It's incredibly cool because it does reactive design. So if it's it looks good on an iPad, it looks good on a 27-inch monitor, it looks good on a phone. It's incredibly cool. Well, they added a couple of new ones that are really worth looking at, especially the blog features. And as I'm building into my minerbasilica.org site, a new catechesis section with a video blog and some other stuff like that, I've been experimenting with these new features, and some of them are incredibly cool. And so I also noticed that while I was doing that their pricing structure has reduced itself too. So if you don't need a full commerce site, but you still want to be able to receive donations, it's only $16 a month.
Oh.
And which, that's incredibly inexpensive considering that's your software, that's your virus free. It's unlimited space for any file under 20 megs and unlimited bandwidth, unmetered bandwidth.
Wow.
And so, and
You've
they
got
also
Jeff's
use a series
attention.
of magic nerd stuff. So there's no such thing as a slash dot effect. So even if Leo Laporte mentions your site on Twit, it doesn't go down.
Oh.
Incredible. And so it's inexpensive. It's really worth looking at. I don't get any money back. There's no offer code. But if you're looking to do a website, I really recommend more and more that Squarespace is the place you go. It does have some limitations. It doesn't work well with Google Calendar, but it's incredibly good price. It's really workable. It's beautiful. And it's something I really want to encourage you to take a look at. Squarespace.com.
My pick of the week is food. It is a little thing called the courtesan au chocolat, and it is one of the characters in a movie that I cannot recommend to you because it has some non-family friendly stuff and some bad language in it. The Grand Budapest Hotel. I don't know if you've ever seen any of Wes Anderson's films, but they're all extremely quirky, and do not watch them with your children. This pastry is called the courtesan au chocolat. It's a character in the movie, and it is a puff pastry with chocolate custard in it. And in fact, I for those of you who click on the show notes or are watching the video feed, I actually made these. I made the courtesan au chocolat. Yeah, in fact, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and so I actually made the puff pastry. I made the icing. I made the chocolate custard filling, and I put it all together because, well, what else was I going to do on a Saturday night? You know, I'm a celibate, so what do? I bake. So anyway, that's my pick of the week because they are tasty and they're easy to make. And so I would recommend those to you, even if you don't see the movie. If you're in the mood for a fun baking time, this will keep you and maybe your friends. Baking's always good with a friend, right?
Jeff, why don't you ask Father Chris where those are?
Wow.
Yeah, did you have the extras? Did
I
you
was.
bring them
I mean,
with
that
you?
was going to be the thing. I was going to bring them here tonight, and we were going to enjoy them on the show, but I forgot them at home.
I think the proper answer is on his hips. On his hips.
Aha!
Yeah, certainly the handle region. That's for sure.
Does that make my collar look big?
That's right. It does, actually. So the really cool thing is that because Wes Anderson is one of these guys that is extremely OCD about the way he makes films, there is a video of how to make these. And then there is another video by a local Phoenix pastry chef that kind of improves the recipe a little bit. So my pick of the week is the courtesan au chocolat.
Ding.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, exactly. And as usual, Jeff, we thank those who help us out, don't we?
Yes, we do. Portions of the Catholic Underground are brought to you by audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground. That's audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground.
That's right. We're always grateful for everything that you do. We're certainly grateful for the prayers that you provide to keep our show on the air, to keep us floating across the internet sea. We also thank you for your financial donations as well. CatholicUnderground.com/donate is the way to do that. You can set up a subscription. It's really easy, and that way you can help us to keep doing what it is that we do. If you like us, head over to CatholicUnderground.com/donate and show us some love. We very much appreciate
It's
that.
easy to do.
It's easy to do. It's really easy to do. And we are, as Kathleen will tell you, she doesn't get a paycheck.
No. I don't even get chocolate cookies.
She doesn't get
or
courtesan or chocolat either. Everything that you donate is put right back into the technical stuff in the show. So we thank you very much in advance for all the stuff that you do for us so that we can continue to do for you. All right, if you want the show notes that accompany our episode and the podcast, you want to find out more about our apostolate, all the things that we do, go to CatholicUnderground.com. You'll also find out there how to connect with us on Twitter or the Face book. Father Ryan's church is online at minerbasilica.org. He is at Fr Humphreys on Twitter. Thank you, Father Ryan.
It's been my pleasure.
Jeff Blackwell is the tech director for the CU. He's also the ruling despot at the Blackwell Communications Group. JeffBlackwell.us is the way you can see his website, and you can also tweet him at Jeff Blackwellis. Thank you, Jeff.
It's a pleasure, Father.
Yes, and did you do such wonderful work there up on the satellite, the Jeff Star 1? Sure. Also got Kathleen Lee, who's joined us. She's the Faith Ninja at Kathleen YABR on Twitter. Thank you, Kathleen.
Anytime.
And Tim the Seminary intern, has got the video feed wired this week, and we're thankful that he does. He also sells badgers on the black market. Thank you, Tim, for taking care of that. You know me. I'm Father Chris Decker. You can follow me on Twitter at Digital Catholic. Join us on the interwebs for CatholicUnderground.tv for more from the CU. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us on the digital continent. We're Catholic Underground. We're faith gone digital, and we will see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.